Hello, everyone. Mike from DynamicPoint here. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining our webinar. Today's agenda is we're going to be looking at processing employee expenses using Office 365 and Microsoft Teams. And we are going to specifically showcase our Easy EXP 365 application. So I'll give it one more minute here before we get started, make sure everyone had time to join. And then I will get started, and the entire meeting should probably take us just a little over 20 minutes. So we'll probably finish up a little early here, 20 minutes or so past the hour. All right, looks like I have a couple minutes past the top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. As we're going through this, everyone has been muted just to keep down background noise, but if you do have any questions, I'm trying to do my best to keep an eye on the question panel as well as the chat. So if you have anything, please feel free to submit it, and I'll do my best to address any questions if there's an opportune time as we're going through it. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, just first of all, a brief introduction of who DynamicPoint is. DynamicPoint, we're fairly unique in the application development world, and we build our products specifically for Office 365. So we're very much an app within that ecosystem, and it's very similar to having an app on your mobile phone. Anytime you install an app on the mobile phone, it asks you various questions of what aspects of the platform it could use, such as the camera, location services, etc. And that is exactly what we do, but we're on the Office 365 environment. So it is very much a prerequisite for our products, and we do leverage that functionality wherever we can to deliver a more robust experience and a better product with obviously a hope less of a cost or more efficient of an application because we're using what our customers already have. We've been around since 2009. Office 365 has not. It's a fairly new product, so we actually reinvented ourselves from a SharePoint development company to an Office 365 app company over the past 6 years or so. So that is a little history on us. We'll keep it going. Our product lineup for today's focus, we're looking at this application right here, our EasyXP Employee Expense Management application. Basically handles the capture of receipts, entry of those as expenses, workflow associated to them, account coding, and then ultimate integration of this transaction into your ERP system. So that's the process that we're going to cover today. We also have a portal application which enables a customer or vendor employee portal using Office 365 SharePoint, as well as an invoice automation. Those will not be the focus for today. Today we'll focus on our employee expense management. Okay, a little bit more on our approach, what makes us different. There's all these various tools that come with your Office 365 subscription. And again, we're completing this picture or pie or a slice of the pie to make all this functionality available to you such that these applications and these products can be used to manage employee expenses. So we're over on the left here. We create our applications with very specific functionality around expense management and mileage tracking and credit card integration. The app is actually hosted by SharePoint. So SharePoint is providing the security, branding, document management. For workflow, we're using another Microsoft tool by the name of Power Automate. It provides us the approvals and escalations that we'll see in the demo. Power Apps for remote expense capture and the submission of receipts as incurred in the field. Forms for gathering in any additional detail if we want to have a portal page or anything like that for expense report creation or external users coming in creating expenses. And then last but not least, we're using Power BI for reporting and analytics. So all these tools are being used in conjunction with our app to complete the picture and give you a flexible solution for, again, hopefully a fraction of the cost of developing these all from scratch, and hopefully as well to competitor solutions. The expense management process. So let's talk about the process that we're going to walk through in the application and introduce this as a business process first. The first step for expense management is, generally speaking, we want to capture the receipt or the expense. Office 365 gives us all kinds of ways to do this. We could email that in, so I could just take an attachment and email it to the library. I could use a mobile app. That comes up quite a bit from traveling employees. Obviously, that used to be more relevant back in the age when we would travel more for business, but we still see it even if employees are submitting expenses from their home. We could do a mobile upload right from OneDrive, or we could have a portal entry, or we could just do the old-fashioned attachment and upload it from our computer. So all of those apply. After that receipt is captured, we move on to the second stage, which is the processing and the workflow associated to getting the fields extrapolated. So any recognition of fields using the OCR. The report does go into our application where we're going to handle all of the assignments to such things as accounts and other financial aspects, such as like dimensions or segments, depending on your ERP application. The application of business workflow, as well as policy enforcement and rules associated to expense reporting. The review and approval of that expense report. And then the last and final step is that report comes into our application, ready to be posted and paid. So the actual distribution to the employee, as well as any coding of credit card transactions and the GL accounting of that, is occurring in the ERP application. So that's the process we're going to walk through today. So we're going to get out of PowerPoint and go right to the demonstration. So I'll exit the screen and bring you onto the dashboard. So this is our employee expense reporting dashboard. Again, this is a SharePoint site. You can see I have various calls to action here as my ability to look at my reports that are currently in the system, manage receipts, as well as a link to the ERP for payment processing. I also have a Power App I could demonstrate today for mobile expense entry. We're going to be doing most of this not from the website, but rather the Teams interface. You really do have a lot of options here. This could all be managed from a site or the mobile phone or Teams. For the sake of today's demonstration, we're going to be doing most of it from Teams, just given that that seems to be obviously quite popular with businesses as they're working from home and the preferred interface these days. But note that you could do it from the site. A lot of what I'll cover will also be from mobile application, but not to say the least, we'll do a lot of that from Teams. So as you can see, I've created a new team channel here by the name of EasyAP, and I have a dashboard associated to it. Again, that first step in the process is capturing a receipt or the receipt upload. All of these are going to come directly into our inbound receipt library. And again, we have different methods depending on the type of business you are and whether or not these employees are working mostly from desktops and they want to go ahead and upload a receipt here, or if they want to capture it from a mobile. So we'll do a little of all of those. First being the most simple, I can most certainly just capture any receipt and bring it over to my library. By bringing this over, we are kicking off an OCR process and recognize any of those fields that are on this receipt. So here you can see I've brought in my sample receipt. So of course I have a preview of that. That's loading. There it is. So that's the receipt I just uploaded. That will initiate an OCR process to capture any of the critical fields, such as the total due or the vendor or the date and things like that. Those could be automatically added to the report by nature of me just bringing them into the library, or I could just have this library as a queue of receipts that I need to ultimately code in more of a manual fashion. So it really depends on if the details can be recognized using OCR such that it could be fully automated, or if I want to have this merely as a queue of open attachments that I need to later code, I can most certainly do that process as well. So let's look at this upload library, and as opposed to looking at from the Teams perspective, let's go ahead and bring over my mobile and show how we could capture that same receipt from my mobile application. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Power Automate. Oops, I'm sorry, wrong application. I'm going to go ahead and open up Power Apps, and I have an expense report app here. And I want to capture a new receipt. So this would be the use case where my employees are more in the field and they want to do all this from their mobile phone. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new expense report. Say I attended a trade show. Here I have the ability to define my approvers. That could obviously be determined by the workflow, or I could assign it. Assign a company to this and create the report. The report, of course, has some header information on it, and then I'm going to enter line items. Line items could be such things as incidentals as well as credit card transactions. Let's do an incidental here and say we're doing a team dinner. I'm going to go ahead and put that to meals and entertainment. Put a cost of $64 associated to it, as well as attach the file. For attaching the file, I'm just going to take a picture from my phone. I have one here on my desk. I'll go ahead and snap a shot of it, upload the photo, and then save it. Now, by doing this from my mobile phone, I'm actually automatically adding these items to a transaction or to an expense report that exists in our app's dashboard. So I'll show that in a second, but that's where these are all going. Or if that's a little bit too cumbersome, in other words, I don't want employees coding them during this, I'd rather just have them capture the receipt. Microsoft also offers a Onedrive app, which is a little bit more simplistic as opposed to coding it to such things as accounts and putting more metadata. I could just capture or scan the receipt, and then maybe rely on OCR to do that interpretation for me. So in this case, I'll go ahead and capture the receipt using the scan function of Onedrive, confirm it. You can see here it cleaned it up for me. So Onedrive has these whole filter capabilities where it's got rid of my desk and my PC and just focused on the actual attachment. And we'll go ahead and hit done and save it directly to my attachment upload directory. So again, by uploading that, it's all going in the same spot, right? So now I'll have a new scan that you can see just came through right now that I submitted from my mobile phone. And again, the Power App went actually directly into the application because I coded it. In this case, it's being staged for OCR and then ultimate either manual or automatic inclusion of the receipt on an expense report. So those are some of the various ways that I could get an attachment or a receipt into the system. The next step in the process that we introduce is after I have all these attachments, I begin the processing of them. And again, the processing could be more manual if I'm just trying to capture them, or more automated if all the necessary data is either being captured by the mobile app or from OCR. So this is our application. Again, this is being rendered in Teams. If I went back to that SharePoint site, it would be a very similar experience. And as you can see here, I have my trade show report that has been created. So I could go ahead and edit this. Attended a trade show, of course, any of the fields that I entered here are being captured as far as the company location. And I could add more line items to it at this point. I will show you this just for the sake of seeing that integration with the attachment library. So let's say, again, we maybe picked up some office supplies or something like that. So we'll put Amazon. Code it to a cost center. Put it to an account, and then specify any dollar amount associated to that, as well as the ability to add the attachment. So again, this is where a lot of the flexibility comes in. I could actually add the attachment directly from my PC, or we're integrating with that library. So any of the receipts that you saw me upload from my mobile phone are there and available for me as well. So that's the scan that I just entered. Of course, I could preview it and look at an image of that, as well as select it for inclusion on this report. So we'll go ahead and upload that one to this item and close out my attachments. Other functionality, so these represent incidentals that are being reimbursed to the employee. So it's consisting of my reimbursement total. I could also add mileage items that auto-calculate reimbursement. For these, I could actually manually type it in, or we have a Google Maps integration. So just for the sake of example, if I went from Disneyland to the airport, I could click the calculate distance. That's going to make an integration or a call for Google Maps. You could see here's my trip, and then I'll get OK here. That'll automatically populate the distance as well as the from and to. And then again, I could begin coding the configurable, what we call categories that ultimately determine the expense association to this. That'll be used when it comes time to integrate this report with the ERP product. So I have some incidentals that have been captured. Again, some coming from the library as well as the Power App. I have the ability to add auto items. And then last but not least is credit card transactions. So credit card transactions come in from a feed. We have an integration with a service that allows us to hook up to various financial institutions. And I could add credit card items directly to my report as well. Credit card items, generally speaking, get treated a little differently in that they're not reimbursable to the employee. So you can see here I have a couple buckets. I have a report total as well as a credit card total. The credit card amounts are not being reimbursed to the employee in this case. That is configurable. So if for some reason I need to pay the employee for credit card expenses, I could do that as well. So I could put in my trip to the trade show. Again, assigning a cost center as well as an expense type associated to that. The amount is coming directly from the credit card transaction as well as the vendor name and date. Another capability is such things as expense type can be mapped in the system. Credit card feeds give us something called an MCC code or merchant category code. And the classification of these could also default based on a mapping of that credit card feed to the expense types, which are ultimately determined GL account assignment in the application. So I have various types of items here. I have expense items, I have auto items, I have credit card items. Again, how I want to get that in there, I'm currently within Teams. I could have done that from the web app or automatically added these transactions from the Power App that I showed you. Power Apps are also available from Teams too, by the way. So if I wanted to click over to my Power Apps interface, I could create a transaction right from Teams if I don't want to use my mobile phone. So I could give a very custom experience to my employees on the type of fields that I want to capture in a very simplistic interface if they don't desire to come into the actual application. So now that I have that, my next step is I'm going to submit it for review. So this could automatically be done based on some criteria. I'm going to say from a manual perspective, I want to kick off this report, and that's going to kick off a review process. The review process does use Power Automate workflows to route this for approval. My approval is being conducted by the cost center assignment, but that is something very configurable in the system. So when we get into reviews, again, we have a lot of options here on how we want to process these reviews or how I want to review them. The probably first one, again, is this Teams feed. So you can see here I did receive a new notification for a report that needs to be approved. So in this case, I'm pretending to be a manager in the system. I could go ahead and approve or reject it, as well as drill into the report itself. By drilling into the report, we have the ability to apply permissions. So maybe reviewers have the ability to edit the report as it's going through the workflow. In this case, I only have view-only access. So you can see I don't have edit capability. But I could look at any reviewer notes as well as an audit log of each step in the workflow process. So in this case, I'm the first reviewer. Not a lot has occurred. It's been assigned to my demo account as a manager. And then the notes are actually blank at this time because, again, I am the first reviewer and there have been no reviewer notes entered. Any of these details of the expense line items, of course, I could drill into, see attachments and things like that. So that's one method, is that feed that is provided by Teams. If I were to go back to my channel here, I could also build a list. So if I don't want to do them on an individual basis, there's a whole Power App integration. Oops, I'm sorry, a review, Power Automate integration, I apologize. And I could look at all of the items that are assigned to me if I don't want to do it on an individual basis. So here I have that same report that's been sent to me with some details, and again, the ability to drill back, and then I could approve or reject it direct from here, as well as this case, I could reassign it. If I'm not living within Teams every day, I also have an email that's been sent to me. Again, same idea, being generated from Power Automate, approve or reject, as well as a drill back functionality. And then last, if I am truly a road warrior and I want to do all of this from my mobile application, I will have a new approval assigned to me as well within the app. So again, I could approve or reject it directly from the Power Automate application that's available for iPhones and Android devices. So regardless of the method, it doesn't really quote unquote matter where I want to do this. I'm going to go ahead and go back to Teams just because that's what we've been showcasing. Again, the ability to review that and then say this report looks good. And confirm it. If there's multiple steps in the workflow, this will continue to move on in the workflow. For the sake of our demo, I keep it really simple and I just have a single tier approval. So that's the approval process. Now moving past the approval, I go back to my dashboard here. Actually, I'm sorry, let's go ahead and do that from Teams again so we can see it there. And I'll look at my processing reports. So let's go ahead and expand my view here. See my expense processing. You can see my trade show is actually gone out of my queue. Reason being is it has been approved. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a new status here and apply a filter in my dashboard. And I'll see that one that I just integrated right down here. So here's my full report for the office supplies. We have captured some more details on each of these. So just to show you some of the capability, of course, I could drill into it. I could look at the notes associated to that. So any of the reviewer notes that I entered were, of course, captured, as well as an audit log that's continued to populate of each step in the approval process. And then as well as the last tab shows the ERP integration details. So we integrate with various ERP applications. This one I believe is integrating with Microsoft Dynamics GP, showing the transaction number that was created as well as the state. The state will update itself dynamically as this is paid and processed within the ERP. So employees could come back here and also check the status of whether or not that expense report has been paid, and I could show such things as a check number or an ACH deposit number on that view if I want to have that visibility for my end employees. So, as I mentioned, we'd be wrapping up hopefully within 20 minutes, and it looks like we're just about at that. So I wanted to say thank you everyone so much for joining. If you have any interest in our product and you were to go to our website, we publish the pricing directly on our website. So if I were to go to dynamicpoint.com, for all of our applications, we have recorded demos, the ability to schedule live demos as well as pricing. So if I were to go to an expense management and load our site here, we have various recordings, pricing being published, various implementation packages, as well as the ability to schedule a real-time demo. So that was all I had, and then I'm sorry, a recorded live demo as well. No, I'm sorry, not live, but a recorded personal demo as well. So that was all I had on the agenda today. I wanted to thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. I appreciate everyone taking the time out of your day. Have a great rest of your week, and please let us know if you have any questions or if we could provide any additional details. Take care and thank you again.